Chapter 21. Blood Ties. What Huxley said couldn't be true. My brother and I were just normal people.
I told you already, you and your brother are essential to our cause. When David Rosid joined the military, we did our routine blood test. We were overjoyed to find out about the value of his blood.
If he was so important to you, then why did you experiment on him and imprison him?
I spat. Huxley shrugged.
Admittedly, we were still learning how to best utilize him, but imagine our luck when his sister decided to pretend to be a man in order to sneak into our ranks and search for him.
He sneered.
The military in Lud doesn't allow women, but after we confirmed your blood had the same special properties as your brother's, we agreed to look the other way. Only this time, we were careful not to overdo it. Whenever we needed a sample, we only took small amounts of blood from you. We didn't want to use up our second subject, Subject Omega.
My head was spinning. Who was in on it? Did everyone know? It was apparent from the smug expression on Huxley's face that he was pleased with shattering my worldview. I refused to believe that everyone, especially those closest to me, was part of this betrayal. I raised my weapon.
Get down!
I shouted at Diane, who had held her position in front of us.
Bullets won't work,
Diane warned.
I said get down,
I repeated. This time Diane sidestepped out of the way. I changed my weapon setting to fire the explosive darts, and I fired everything I had. But not at Huxley. I fired at the walls and ceiling between the Brigadier General and our group. The tiny explosives buried themselves in the concrete with a tinkling noise.
Move!
I bellowed. John took hold of Seth's collar, leaped to his feet, and pulled him back as far as he could. Diane dove to the ground in preparation for the coming explosion. I moved to shield my still unconscious brother with my own body. The darts exploded and shattered the walls and ceiling of the corridor. Heavy chunks of concrete and earth filled the space between our ragged group and the menacing Brigadier General. Luckily, Huxley was taken off guard, and he moved backward to avoid the falling rubble instead of coming toward us to finish us off. By the time the collapse had finished, the path between Huxley and us was completely blocked with debris. Diane rolled onto her side.
You're insane,
She chided.
but good job.
She finished, giving me a thumbs up. Diane hopped to her feet and hurried over to Seth.
How is he?
She asked John.
He'll live.
John assured.
Huxley wasn't lying. It's not a fatal wound for Seth.
Diane let out a sigh of relief.
We have a little while before our friend rejoins us. Even he, juiced up as he is, will take a while to get through all of that.
She said, gesturing to the rubble blocking the hallway.
Or he could just go around it.
John reminded.
We need to get out of sight and lick our wounds.
Diane suggested.
Come on!
I urged.
Huxley will either bust his way through here or go around through the warehouse to cut us off. We can go straight down this hallway and find a random room to hide and rest in.
John flung one of Seth's arms over his shoulders and managed to move him down the hallway. Meanwhile, Diane and I each took one side of my still unconscious brother and did the same. We hobbled down the hallway past the intersection of corridors. We fled as far as we dared. Huxley was hunting us, and we didn't want to push our luck and get caught in the hallway. We ducked into a random room which turned out to be an office. It was bare except for a desk, filing cabinets, and a few dusty family photos belonging to the former occupant adorning the wall. Diane and I propped my brother against the wall while John settled Seth against the ornate wooden desk at the back of the room. My brother's head had barely touched the wall when Diane rushed over to Seth's side. He wasn't totally unconscious, but his eyes were fluttering and his breathing was labored. His shirt hung heavy on his body, soaked with blood. His face was a bruised mess where Huxley had pummeled him.
How long do you think we have before Huxley catches up with us?
Asked Diane. I wasn't sure if I could put a number to how long it would take a superhuman hybrid to find us. I scratched my head.
I don't think he'll pick his way through the rubble. If he goes around and checks every room before this one, I'd say we have no more than 20 minutes to recover.
I answered. Diane seemed satisfied with my answer because she simply nodded and turned her attention back towards Seth. She opened up one of her packs, took out a small metal tube, and took the cap off, revealing a needle. She tossed the cap aside and jammed the needle into the fleshy part of Seth's upper arm. Almost immediately, his face relaxed and his breathing steadied.
Help me with his shirt.
Diane motioned to John. Diane started to cut Seth's shirt away with the very same combat knife that she had only moments ago used to threaten Huxley. When I saw the wound on his chest, I gasped. A ragged gash ran diagonally down his torso, shoulder to hip, like a red lightning bolt. The bleeding had stopped, but it was still a gruesome sight. It served as a grim reminder that even though we are human, we are still made of muscle and sinew. We are still made of meat. Diane wasn't bothered by the sight. She produced a needle and medical thread and quickly got to work suturing the wound. Little by little, the wound closed, and the path to Seth's survival seemed to open and become a little clearer. She finished by using a little aerosol can to spray something onto the injury. Seth winced and sucked in his breath as the spray coated his wounds. She caught me staring and blurted,
To prevent infection.
I nodded, but I was sure that the spray was another example of the underground's amazing technology that hadn't yet, or wouldn't ever, make it into the hands of the rest of the world. Diane was doting over Seth's massive wound like how a mother would tend to her child's scraped knee. Seth opened his eyes and looked straight at me before letting them close again. I felt certain Seth wouldn't die, but I had my own family to worry about. I looked over at my brother and brushed some hair out of his face. I'd feel better about this situation if he was awake at least. David always knew what to say to ease tense nerves. A long time ago, when I was still in school, I was sulking around the house about some upcoming exam. The headmaster had said that the tests they would be giving us would impact our future success. Needless to say, the stress was killing me. As I was stomping around the house in a huff, David caught me by the arm and asked, "If you fail this test, will anyone die?" "Of course not," I scoffed. "Then no matter how badly you do, you won't kill anyone and you won't die," he grinned. At the time, I didn't exactly find his advice helpful, but later on, during the test, it helped me relax. Whenever you're worried about something, just ask yourself if anyone will die if you fail, he explained. Most of the time, no matter how badly you mess up, no one will die. His words helped me find some perspective on what matters. But it doesn't always make things better. Sometimes people can die because of your actions.
Rosid. Aubrey,
Called Diane, snapping me out of my daydream.
we don't have much longer and we need to talk.
I tried to force a small smile and swallowed the lump in my throat. Needing to talk was rarely pleasant. Diane and John remained seated next to Seth, and I stayed by the side of my unconscious brother. Our team was now divided both by physical space and our true allegiances. We were allies on this mission, but I was still here for different reasons than they were. My only goal was to get my brother and me out of here safely.
Seth is different,
Diane started.
That's an understatement.
I grunted.
but so are you and your brother.
She finished. I brought my knees up to my chest. Huxley had revealed that my brother and I were considered Subject Alpha and Subject Omega by the military. If he was to be believed, then our blood was used to help make the monsters we had fought when infiltrating the fort.
Some people are born with extraordinary potential. When you look at history, warrior kings, legendary heroes, or brilliant scientists all had something in common. They're different from normal people, and that difference can be traced to their blood. Not everyone who was great or made a mark on the scroll of history had the marker in their blood, but many did. Everyone's human potential is limitless, but the rare genetic blessing helps.
Diane pointed a finger at me.
You and your brother are two of these rare people.
She put a hand on Seth's shoulder.
And so is Seth.
Do you know how old Diane and I are?
Interjected John. Diane slapped John on the hand.
Never bring up a lady's age.
She pouted. I thought for a moment.
I don't know. You're probably in your 50s and Diane might be in her late.
Diane squinted at me and looked like she was going to pounce if I didn't answer to her liking.
Early 30s.
I replied. That answer must have satisfied her, because her squint transformed into a smile.
I'll turn 87 next February, and Diane will turn 63 in September.
John disclosed.
How is that possible?
I asked, stunned.
You've seen how fast we move. We are already far faster than someone who is truly in their 30s or 50s, and we are much older. We look like this and move like that because we inject ourselves with samples of Seth's blood.
John revealed.
We practically raise Seth so he doesn't mind it.
I mirrored Diane and put my own hand on my brother's shoulder.
But David and I aren't special. We aren't anything like Seth.
I countered.
Even if you don't seem different, the difference is in your blood. Something could show up in 10 years or never, but it is there.
John interjected.
But think hard about what the average person is really like. Based on your life so far, could you actually deny that you are extraordinary?
Most people work jobs, start families, and die in their own beds surrounded by loved ones. I suppose he had a point, I thought. Most people led fairly straightforward lives. I grimaced. Lives I was jealous of.
Did you guys in your organization know this about my brother and me already?
I asked.
Based on Seth's report from when you first met on his assassination mission, we had a hunch about you. Huxley's gloating wasn't a lie. Seth recognized you as someone like him. After that, it was simply a matter of tracking you down.
Confessed Diane.
We confirmed your condition with a blood test and assumed your brother would be the same, genetics and all that.
She said, waving a hand in the air. I thought back to the doctor Daniel had taken me to right after I arrived at the Underground's base. That's why the doctor was in such a hurry to get a sample of my blood. They were confirming what I was. My face was hot.
Why didn't you tell me right away?
I demanded through gritted teeth.
You don't have to believe me, but none of us told you in order to protect you. You're the type of person who wants a simple, quiet life. You live in a cabin in the woods, after all.
Replied Diane.
Sometimes it's easier to live your life in ignorance than to know every single hard truth.
She took a deep breath and let it escape past her lips slowly.
Every country's military has always had a shadowy wing dedicated to making super soldiers. It's nothing new. None of them ever get close to anything resembling success, not until Lude's breakthrough. We confirm that you and your brother are among those gifted individuals whose blood has special properties, but we didn't know the military was using you and your brother's blood to make monstrosities. We didn't know they called you Subject Alpha and Subject Omega. That's their name for you. To us, you're still just Aubrey Rosid.
She finished. Was Diane telling the truth? I wondered. For now, I had to believe her since she wasn't the one actively trying to imprison my brother and me in a lab.
If we are going to stand a chance against Huxley,
Diane continued,
we need your help.
I stifled a hollow laugh.
I already fired everything I had at him. What do you want me to do? Give him a stern talking to?
I asked sarcastically. Diane produced a pair of syringes from her pack.
We need to inject Seth with a sample of you and your brother's blood. We need to make him like Huxley so he can fight on equal footing,
pleaded Diane. I hesitated. Did I really want to agree to make Seth, the one who carelessly kills when ordered to, and the one who killed my friends, into the same kind of monster as Huxley?
Do it to me instead,
I offered.
Inject me with Seth and David's blood and I'll fight Huxley.
Diane shook her head.
Do you honestly think that you have the combat skills to stand up to him?
She proclaimed. She had a point. As much as I didn't want to help the one who killed my friends, I wanted to get out of here alive with my brother more.
Fine, do it. Take my blood.
I relented, offering my arm. Diane hurried over to me and painlessly jabbed me with a syringe. The vial hungrily filled itself with my blood. She moved over to draw blood from David when we heard it. Clack-tap, clack-tap, clack-tap. The sounds of footsteps coming down the hallway. I heard a door down the hall creak open and slam shut. Huxley was closing in on us, and Seth hadn't recovered. Diane fumbled with the needle and jabbed my brother. Another door creaked open and slammed shut. Clack-tap, clack-tap, clack-tap. The footsteps were getting closer. Diane held up 2 full syringes, one with my blood and one with my brother's blood. The door swung open. Huxley stood sneering in the doorway.
So, this is where you rats were hiding.
He jeered.